Hey gamers, what's up? It's Gold Demon here. Once again, I'm yapping. I know I'm kind of spamming tier list content. It's just how the updates lined up. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, me and chat were already talking about the placements of characters, and this one I find really, really interesting. The Rise of our King Archer, best DPS in the game. I definitely did not predict this last night. No way, whatsoever. No. Seriously though, Archer is very strong for a free-to-play unit. It's kind of ridiculous. Power creep be damn. Was in Mr. Poke's stream, and he did say that the baseline will upgrade to E0 S1. Ooh. That I find very interesting because there's a couple characters like Acheron and Phainon who get a big power spike with their, like signature weapon. So that is very interesting. Oh, and Cypher. Well, I mean, kind of all Nihility because of Cypher's Light Cone. But, yeah, that's very interesting that the baseline's not going to be that. I think that is fair, personally, as it is going to be more realistic for a player to probably have the Light Cones on a few characters, right? So, yeah, that is very interesting because there's some pretty noticeable power spikes for a few characters, but there's a lot of interesting placements for... Oh my god, hold on, let me mute that shit. My bad. Forgot I had that open. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting placements for certain characters with their light gun specifically. Oh my god, it was just it's my friend trolling me online. So yeah, let's take a look here. They added both Saber and Archer, who are really strong characters, as we've already seen. Archer is T0 for MOC, Saber is T.5 for MOC. This I do generally agree with. As for Pure Fiction, they put Saber in T1. I need to play with her more. I'm not too sure how I feel. I don't like how Jing Yuan performs in Pure Fiction. I still think he's straight ass. So, yeah. And they put Archer down here. Now, I'm not going to lie. Depends on the environment. But you can actually just brute force Pure Fiction with him. It's really funny. But you have to do sustainless, and it depends on the buff. But you can't just brute force it. That being said, that does not make him good in Pure Fiction. He's still a single target type character, so that's not ideal. It's kind of funny. In Apocalyptic Shadow, he's also T0, and they put Saber in T.5. Both characters have really good toughness damage, so it makes them fantastic inside of Apocalyptic Shadow, right? So really nice to see that, and pretty obvious considering how much single target nuking Archer can do, right? Especially again, if he's in an SP factored buff in Apocalyptic Shadow, he's gonna be like one of the best characters because he can just sit there and just nuke, right? Like fire off 5 skills, breaks the boss. Oh, you get all your skills back, does it again, right? So he can be very strong there. So they comment on Phainon. So let's see. His release has caused quite a stir in the community, with having some incredible success with him and others less so. I've seen a lot of people talking about how Phainon is not good. And look, I'm not sorry when I say this. Most of the time, it is a skill issue. Most of the time. That being said, though, it's one of the scenarios where he's got a pretty low floor because of how he functions. And for that same reason, it's like if you don't know what you're doing, massive performance drop. If you run a sustain, massive performance drop. But if you set him up right, insane power. Kind of like Archer, right? So this does make sense. And so this is where I think you probably mentioned that in response to this, we felt it's necessary to proceed with an early round of data collection to look at Phainon specifically. It's available on his profile. Okay, so they're just doing data analysis. Look, I have my problems with using like usage rates and stuff like that for a performance-based list. So we'll see how they feel about this, but I would say I think it's fair to put him like in in T0, like where he is right now. Like I think these ratings are totally fine personally. I don't know. Urta's dropping off due to the shifting in the single target. Yes, that was inevitable. having a strong free-to-play character is the most W we could have done, and I agree. Very happy that Archer just, you know, slaps his thing on the table and just does a bunch of damage. I think it's great. If we're shifting to sustainless characters, with the better access to action advance, sustainless is going to be a lot more viable, and with better access to SP, because one of the things holding back sustainless comps is SP use, but then also the fact that your characters can't act fast enough to use all their abilities. And so when we have characters like Archer, Phainon, who ideally are just running up a ton of buffs and they can nuke everything, sustainless becomes a lot more viable because they get that one turn and then boom, explode the battlefield, right? As long as you're able to do that, it will work. Now, characters like Hyacinth obviously mix that up a little bit because she is a really strong sustain who can also deal damage. But she's also placed typically alongside Casterace, who's buffing her with her domain, right? The 25% res, or is it 24% res penetration? So there seems, at least in my opinion, seems to be a more like definitive split in between playstyles for characters, where we still have like our hyper carry setups like we've had back in the day, right? But more so now due to how these new character kits are, but then also these like team damage scenarios where the whole team is contributing towards damage and not just amplification, right? Like I feel like this really started with you could say the follow-up team, but I was going to say Break because the follow-up team really grew after the fact with Robin. But I guess Break did technically come out after the fact. Like, what, 2.3? But now we're seeing a lot more characters that are, their teams are doing damage. Like Tribby's doing damage, Cypher's doing damage, she's storing your damage, Hyacinth's doing damage. You know, Aventurine was supposed to do damage, she doesn't do a lot, but you're seeing a lot more of these supportive characters also contribute to, you know, damage in some way. Or boost setups, and part of this is an effect of just, you know, power creep, but also there's utility creep with like how, like a Gallagher, for example, right? No sustain pre 2.0 has anywhere near like Gallagher's utility or like any like extra toughness damage or stuff like that, that because they weren't designed around that. Right, all these new systems came in, Super Break, you know, Remembrance characters with their summons. All these new systems came in, and they were designed around those systems. And so you see this massive gap between Gallagher and the rest of the sustain roster because he was designed around Break existing. As for these characters, they weren't. Right. There's a bigger problem with them being like standard characters. But the only way you're going to have like Fushuan and Luocha compete with these like future sustains going forward is if they are directly buff, because it is just no competition. If you make a character designed around the new system, they are going to be infinitely more valuable than the old character who wasn't, right? And there's a whole lot of like game design stuff I could talk about if I wanted to go into that. But the main point is that I don't know if it's necessarily like a big shift towards sustainless. It's more so that they are designing around specific problems to then sell you the solution. It's pretty much what it is. Like, it's the typical gotcha thing where make a problem, sell you the solution. And to some extent, you can definitely feel that more in Star Rail. But it's alleviated a little bit with strong free-to-play options like Archer, Gallagher, right? So at least there's a little give and take there. You know, they make something funny and they give you something funny to, you know, use in that new content, right? We'll see how that like changes going forward, right? But I don't know. I'm not predicting like a huge shift into sustainless characters personally. I think it's more so Phainon was just designed around sustainless, and so they're going to make a support tailored for sustainless comps, right? Like the new support character, she'll probably be tailored towards sustainless comps. Something like that, where it's like they're not very good on their own, but they're really good at Phainon, who runs sustainless. And if you can have other characters that can benefit from that character and it's sustainless, she'll be good there, sort of thing, right? So yeah, it does all connect. It's however the team how Universe wants to, you know, design characters and whatnot. Players using sustains had worse scenarios across the board, most often significantly worse. Yes, massive performance drop. Players with Phainon signature perform significantly better, to be expected. Yep. Certain supports and team compositions overwhelmingly outperform others. That is true, due to how he gains core flames. As well as community feedback and testing, we're making a few adjustments to his ratings. He's been a polarizing character in pure fiction. If you're able to clear without the need for sustain, performs very well. But if your gear and team can't manage, you must run a sustain. His performance takes a massive hit. Phainon signature is also impactful in pure fiction and other modes. Yeah, because base speed contributing to the gulf in performance players are observing. With that said, data on the current pure fiction, we agree strong enough to sit alongside Inoxa or Jinty as we assess pure DPS. We're moving Phainon to 2.5 for now, Mutter. Okay, so fully reading the statement, I do understand where they're coming from. Like, after looking at more data to assess where he's rating at specifically or S0 for these modes, I actually do understand why they'd be changing his position for pure fiction. Because if their testing provided he performs at this level, but then further testing provides that he performs at a different level, that makes sense. And so I can agree with that. MOC Apocalyptic Shadow, as expected, Phainon has proven himself worthy in T0 MOC, but his addition to this has also performed incredibly well. And Apocalyptic Shadow, based on this watch list, we're moving him up in the mode, pending his results will be released next phase, covering a few days. Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, outside of Phainon, the interim data we've collected is not useful for assessing other recently changed characters, as the pre and post buff data is mixed together with players' clear histories. Wait, there's people using the old versions of characters? All the new ones are buffed. I mean, listen, there's a conversation to be had about how Jingliu functions now post-buff, but like, the other three are just a direct upgrade, so I don't know what the hell. Okay. But yeah, Inoxa will probably be broken in a sustainless scenario, considering he can pause enemy actions with his ultimate. Anyways, as for the real reason we're here, right? Saber and Archer. Here, let's zoom in a little bit. With both of them releasing 2 more top-tier DPS into the fray, as expected, both are strong. Based on our testing, we found the Archer to excel in MOC Apocalyptic Shadow, earning him top in tier placements. For Saber, we found her to be a little less specialized, but more well-rounded, being serviceable in all 3 modes. Yeah, I agree. Greek system Archer, absolutely, yeah, okay. Yeah, this is pretty much goes without saying. He's really good single target, high toughness damage, up, you know, for his rotations and ultimate, and the fact that he has a follow-up. But being single target nuker doesn't really work well in you know, pure fiction. Saber's the same thing. She has a much more well-rounded kit. And they're saying she's a bit tricky to use, which, yeah, fair enough. Making use of her action advance for her mana burst is gonna change the rotations for a lot of teams, so that makes sense. Other changes. Based on community feedback, we're moving Cypher from support to amplifier. The reason behind this is many consider Cypher's ultimate damage to be a form of wide amplification instead of her own damage. We understand this is an argument and agree. We're moving her to amplifier in all 3 modes. This was the big talk of the town in my last video over this tier list, where Cypher should have been, or no, it was the one beforehand, before Kevin, where Cypher should have been put in amplifier. And yeah, I do agree. You're not really using her for her sub DPS capabilities because her follow-up is pretty weak, all things considered. But yeah, I mean, Tribby's the other one in that discussion. And also, yes, Foul. Inoxa's in T0. We'll get to that. Tribby is kind of in the same boat, but a lot of people are using Tribby more for her damage in AoE scenarios, apparently, compared to the amplification. But at least in my opinion, I think that's a bit more carried by Hyacinth, who is going to be amping her damage because of the HP increase, right? We can talk about wheelchair comp all day. You just slot in Cypher, Tribby, Hyacinth, wheelchairs everybody else to the finish line. I mean, look, point is they belong in T0 regardless, so you know, it is what it is. We feel she does enough personal damage to justify her place in support damage for the time being. Let us know what you think about this. Agree to disagree. As I said, most comps are ideally using Trivy for the amplification, but if you put her alongside like Hyacinth and whatnot, she's doing a significant portion of damage, so it's really here nor there. I know there was a big talk about this last time. If you have a win weak single target, everyone is dead. He can perform well. Speaking of, in MOC, he's in T0. We're following through an Anoxa switch, watch list from last time, moving him to T0. Anoxa mains are gonna go crazy over this one. I don't disagree, but I think it's a matchup dependent thing, right? Because if you have him in pure AoE, it's gonna split up his damage, and like if there's summons, right? Like if the MOC has summons, it's gonna split up his damage. But if you get it into like a 3-1 target scenario, he can just single target down those enemies, kind of like Archer. And so he can perform pretty well given the right scenario. I don't know if it should necessarily put him in T0 though. But if you put him with Sunday and Robin, he is really strong. Herta going down is crazy. I don't think it's that crazy, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think Herta going down is crazy. Yeah, Broden is also weird. It's funny seeing him there since I don't think he's T0. Ow, nobody should be taking your meta take seriously, let's be real. Yeah, so Herta got moved down mostly because of Archer's overwhelming performance and because Saber is doing, really well. And then because of Noxus in T0. Ooh, once again, we're adjusting T0 and similar to My Day, we're moving the lowest of the T0 performers down. I don't know. I feel like My Day's pretty damn good, but I guess fair enough. Bronya, after release of Phainon's patch, Bronya has seen a significant uptick in performance, and this is what I was talking about, usage. NMOC, based on this, we're raising her to T1. Look, I don't think usage rates should be a factor in this. It's more so the strength of the unit, like what are they doing? So like having usage rates can introduce extra bias into something like this. And so I don't really feel like that should be a consideration. Again, I had another video a while back prepared over the way Prydwen does their stuff, and maybe I'll do that in the future. But with the information, apparently they're switching to S1 for all these characters. They're probably fixing some of the issues I had, so that's interesting. But, I mean, if we want to look at the rest of the roster for T1, I think it's fair. Ting Yun's on what? Okay, this is because Ting Yun has now once again seen a bunch of meta relevance in this energy economy that we're in. So like it makes sense why she's on the watch list, because she's getting a lot more use, because she is still really good for all the like current characters, or most of them, not the HP scalers, obviously. But looking at this, it's hard to disagree. There's a conversation to be had about Break and its current performance, but with considering the amplification of characters like Xiao Cho, Herta, and so on, honestly, it kind of makes sense to move her up, just based on what she does, but I don't know. Buff up time be damned. That's the main thing. I was happy for the wrong reasons. Oh, yeah. Well, Saber really wants energy, and like it works with Bronya, but it's mainly for Phainon usage, right? Sparkle should go up a bit. Maybe They put her on the watch list for a reason. Yeah, Herta needs AoE or she's going down, yeah. Break is cringe, I hope they forget it exists. They need to forget Dot. Just give up on Dot already, please. It'll save everybody the time. Ting Yun and Sparkle both on watch list, similar to Bronya. We put much lesser scent. Ting Yun uses to gain some ground thanks to Phainon. Oh, it's not even Saber. Okay, well, I have been talking about this the whole time when everybody asked me about what do I run a Phainon. I keep telling them Sunday, Bronya, Ting Yun. Every time. Because it is the most consistent. It gives you a bunch of stacks. And he just out the door does a bunch of damage. It's also free to play accessible. Ting Yun is also usable with both of the Fate characters. So it's like she's got more relevance now, but I don't know. I don't know. This one's hard to determine, really. I don't know. Because the territories exist like Phainon's, her turn buff will not expire. Oh, Bronya's? Yes, no. Well, that's specifically with Phainon because his counts as a bunch of extra turns, and it doesn't actually tick down any of the buff counters. If you use other territories like Caster Ice, it's still gonna tick down. It's a character thing. But I do agree with putting Tingy on the watch list. If we get even more characters that are, you know, based around their ultimates, it makes perfect sense. Sparkle, they're doing it because of Archer having the best teammates. We expect to improve her scores and usage considerably. Before moving her, though, we want to see exactly how much first. We're placing her in the watch list to move her up. If we're gonna move Sparkle up, I think we need more characters to make use of her, personally. I think she's fine where she's at. I don't know. That is the last of the change log, though, so we're gonna look at the lists and, you know, talk about the other shifts going on here. Right. So let's take a look at the broad list. Where they push every character out of turn, or any character disappears from the turn that is going to count as 3 characters like Moe's. We might get more characters like that, but I think we're going to get a character to utilize the other half of the set. Because if you look at the other half of the set, like the Phainon set, right? It's characters that are... It's teammates that are less than 4 and like greater than 4. So... Or it's 3 or less and then 4 or more. And so I think we're going to get a character that wants a full Memo Sprite comp. So like, let's just say the new March 7th, because we all know March is going to get a new form. It's very obvious. They include her in the story for a reason. March is Memo Sprite DPS plus whatever action advancer Sunday, because he buffed Memo Sprites. And then like RMC, and then, you know, Hyacinth, right? That's 3 Memo Sprites. You're getting... Is it 9% or is it 12%? I think the 4 is the 9%. You're getting like extra 20... Wait, math. Yeah, 21 damage percent from that. So like, I think we'll get a character that's going to spam the hell out of Memo Sprites before we get anything like reducing characters again. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Saber Complex in will be Ting Yun Bronya. Sunday's on the other side. Yes. Yeah, you can use a lot of teammates with Saber. The moment you decide to stick with Casto instead of Archer and the Quantum MOC, Sparkle score doesn't move for you? Well, I think Sparkle needs more teammates. If Archer's the only thing keeping Sparkle's rating where it's at, I don't think that's enough. That's all. But yes, Galagoat is still good. It's so... As already stated, Archer, he is up here. He's very SP unfriendly. I am working on an infographic for him, by the way. I'll do Sabers later. But yeah, I mean, this makes sense. I don't really disagree. As I said, he's going to perform well everywhere, especially at a free-to-play level. His light cone isn't too much of an increase, but his E1 is a pretty significant increase. And it's going to make him more flexible and just do a, you know, big chunk more damage. So that one's that. Anoxa and T0, though. In Apocalyptic Shadow, it makes sense because he does a ton of toughness damage. I don't know about MSC though. Because is he really performing at this level when you've got like Archer, you know, Phainon? I mean, I don't know. I think that's a tough sell personally. Archer E1's achievable anyways. I don't think we should be considering dupes because that gets into a really weird conversation. Or not, I wouldn't say weird conversation. But it makes things more complex than it really has to be. And there's a lot of characters whose E1s aren't as valuable for certain teams, like Sunday's E1. Like, it sucks for most teams because you can't make use of the 40% Memo Sprite damage, right? 40%, sorry, Memo Sprite defense penetration for most characters because most of the Remembrance characters do either split damage or the ones that do mostly Memo Sprite damage don't even run Sunday, right? So it will overcomplicate things if we start including like specifically E1. So like I think it's better to keep it like this. My boners, my son. Probably 0.5 tier for MOCs. It works with almost every support. I think if we're to if we're spread T0 and T.5, I think it'll bring down Agalea. She needs a lot of investment work. Well, that's why they have her in the partner tag, right? Archer is also in the partner tag. The partner tag is saying that they are that level if they have their partner, which in this case for Archer is Sparkle, and in Agalea's case is going to be Sunday, right? So that I do agree with. Agalea specifically, though, she really wants Sunday and his light cone and either her E1 or S1. Like, she wants the extra energy even more. So, like, and then you can even argue Robin. So, like, if you want to say, oh, well, she needs, you know, like 3 cost more than Archer or something like that, like, sure. But with the assumption that you do have that, and let's say, again, they're, as you said, they're changing it to E1 S1. Sorry, E0 S1. I think she can stay where she's at, considering that, again, you have Sunday, you have her weapon and Sunday's weapon. She should be fine. So, yeah. And there's a few other characters where I think it would. Like, Acheron would definitely change with her weapon. Rappa would change with her weapon. Yunli would change with her weapon, probably. There's a few characters here and there. Firefly wouldn't, as an example. Same with Jingliu. I don't think Jingliu or Firefly would change, but they have her on Wait, did they say why Jingliu's on the watch list? No. They put Jingliu on the watch list. I'm very curious why. You think E0 S0 is a weird spot to begin with? I don't know. Boot Hill? Boot Hill performs well in certain scenarios, but it's becoming a, like, for him it's becoming more of a power creep issue. He can do a ton of damage, he can brute force content still, like he can be really good, but it's like what I was talking about the other day with Break, where there's a design issue where you can either increase the toughness and not increase the HP, but then that indirectly nerfs it at the same time. If you don't do that and instead change how the Super Break toughness values work, then it's like, oh, well, then that's just power creeping Ruan Mei. Or if you just don't do anything and then increase the health, then because of their damage staying the same and not scaling, it's gonna, you know, be worse in the future because of power creep. Like, there's a big design problem with how Break works, especially with them being able to do damage, right? And Boot Hill is just as prone to that as Firefly is going to be, right? Firefly less so because she can do direct damage as long as they're broken. Boot Hill needs to build stacks, and so it's going to be very fight dependent. He has to ramp up to do his damage, so on and so on. Like, there's a lot of weird cases with how Break is designed and how it's able to actually output its damage to perform really well. And Boot Hill is just a matter of fact where we're in a scenario where he can't consistently get his max damage off, especially when there's not a lot of physical weak enemies. Yes, he applies it with his ultimate, but you're not always getting his ultimate up on a bunch of his teams. And so his performance is going to be inconsistent despite the fact that he still has good damage. Currently testing her with Robin RMC, and yes, Sunday is ridiculous SMH increase for her. But I can already loop her ult quite often. E1 will just make it finally consistent. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, you want consistent damage. Aglia, like, baseline is like death by 1,000 cuts already, but you do want like her with like Sunday and his S1. It's just an expensive team. I mean, like, it's not about like entirely looping her ultimate. It's about the damage potential of her character. Like, even if you can loop the ultimate, are you getting as much damage without Sunday as you are with Sunday? That's like what's happening there. It's the same thing with Archer. Archer theoretically with other teams can reach similar damage, but Sparkle is what makes it most consistent, as you can spam skills, and she gives, you know, +4 skill points whenever that happens. I think there should be a break character that can choose whether you can do more damage or do more break efficiency instead of being directly designed. That wouldn't really fix the problem, though. I think they'll just power creep Ruan Mei in the future for like break, and that will like make Ruan Mei's value plummet because characters like Cypher already exist. But it is what it is. Gotcha game moment. They make break damage scale off skill multipliers because of that component. And oh, see that, so they tried that with Firefly, but they didn't do it all the way. She's got like half attack and half break scaling, but break can't even crit, so it doesn't do anything for her. Boot Hill, though, has it in his talent, right? But yes, I agree. That would alleviate some of the pain points if they made it scale off, you know, if they gave it talent scaling. There's ways to like help it age a little bit better, but yeah. Do I think Saber's placement is accurate? Yes, that's what we're going over right now. Continuing, because I want to wrap this up, right? I've already yapped for 30 minutes about this. Herta makes sense. She's going to fall off because of the lack of AoE. That's about that. Again, Saber's rating is mostly accurate for the most part. Really, I think the point of contention is the other characters' placements around her. So Blade and Jingliu are on the watch list now. They didn't list why. I wouldn't move Blade up, though. After using Jingliu more, I do think she's a bit too reliant on Hyacinth. But at least from my use, she's performing about the same as what I've seen from Blade. But I would need more information on that. Argenti's been lowered, is what it is. Blade's on the watch list for sub DPS. Kafka, they did say last time, because that's going to be based on, you know, how strong Dot is. Yeah, Bronio's up. These two are on watch list. Silverwolf is still on watch list. Silverwolf is really good now and like across the board, so that one does make sense. Pure Fiction, Phainon moved up because he's, you know, getting better play. I don't think, yeah, Archer is the bottom. Silverwolf is T.5. Yeah, I think all that checks out. And then Apocalyptic Shadow. Yep, Archer makes sense. Silverwolf's up here. I don't know if this is like a default thing, putting watch list on everybody, but I think she's pretty good in APOC, all things considered. It might be a matchup thing, though. Jingliu's down here. I'm not gonna lie, Jingliu is really good in this current APOC. I don't know if it's like just because of the matchup being like really ideal for her, but she's doing pretty well. I don't know. Well, we'll see. It makes sense why they're on the watch list, though. But yeah, chat, closing thoughts. I think the placements for the new characters are pretty well. Some of the other ones are interesting, to say the least, right? Do you think Archer piped Saber? Canonically, she did. Or he did. Spoilers for Fate. A version of him did, canonically. Herta is still good in Pure Fiction, yes. When will the Herta not be good for pure fiction? If they make it single target, I don't know. I think Hole should be a tier high. I'm gonna fucking time you out, bro. Haven't tested her yet, so no point of going further for Jingliu until I get Fatty. Yeah, there's a big performance difference with Fatty. I would say after further test, it is more significant than it may seem. Light Cone, not so much. It's more so the HP increase. The raw damage increase from her on the team is the biggest thing. Since Jingliu's main damage is skill, would the new Wind Harmony Girl copy skills be good for her? No. It's not Archer, but quick, it's a trick question. It's not Archer, it's whatever. Whatever. Look, if you like the video, like it. Tell me your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'm gonna go summon now. So, yeah. See y'all in the next one.